Ash drifted like silent, ember-flecked snow over the ramparts of the Red Keep, each glowing moat carrying the ruin of a dynasty in its fragile curl. Jaime Lannister stood upon the parapet in gold and white, the lion on his cloak muted beneath soot, and wondered whether he too would crumble before dawn. Below, King's Landing burned with 1,000 hungry tongues, the crackle of pine timbers, the howl of draft horses, the shrieks of women that pierced iron helms. The air tasted of pitch and ruptured grain. Smoke stung his eyes, yet it was the weight of his oaths that tightened his throat. He had pledged to keep the king, yet it was the king's madness that had lit this pyre. Now Tywin's crimson tide poured through the gate of the gods, and Jaime felt the world tilt, like a severed head toppling from a headsman's block. There was no safety to be found in obedience. Only choice, grim and thin as a sword edge, remained. He turned from the battlements and descended into the keep's heart. Every corridor echoed with panic. Courtiers clutching heirlooms, septas wailing their litanies, a scullion sweeping rubies that had spilled from a split chest. Jaime's boots tracked Ash across mosaic floors shaped like dragons devouring their own tails. The murals had once gleamed with lapis and gold. Now tongues of flame licked their lacquer as if devouring history in great, greedy bites. Somewhere above, the king still screamed for wildfire, more wildfire, though the pyromancers had long fled. Ares wanted the city burned. The people turned to ash, and Jaime had answered with steel. The smell of roasted flesh clung to him where he had thrust his blade into the king's back. Gods, he could still feel the ribs giving way under Lannister steel. Yet Elia and her children, they were innocent. Pawns perched upon a board others had upended in fury. The thought of Gregor Clegane lumbering through nursery doors, of Amory Lorch chasing a weeping child beneath canopy beds, hollowed Jaime like a blow. Tywin had promised discipline, but Jaime knew the obedience his father prized. Sack, slaughter, an iron message to all the realm. Cross a Lannister and bleed. He pressed a gauntlet fist to the wall, felt heat trembling through quartz inlays. Perhaps he had damned himself slaying one king. Perhaps he could ransom his soul by saving the children another had failed. In that instant, resolve cut through him sharper than Valyrian steel. He would smuggle Elia Martell and her babes out of this charnel city if it cost his life. Steps rang behind him. Ser Meryn Trant hurried by, helm bare, cheeks streaked with grime. "Your grace," he caught himself. "No grace, no king." Ser Jaime, the gold cloaks found 7 kettles of wildfire beneath the flea-bottom granary. "The hand commands." "The hand." Jaime bit the word. "Lord Tywin is not yet regent." "Sir, Lord Tywin's banners man every gate. The small folk say there's butcher knights in the streets." Trant's eyes flickered. "For the princess and her whelps." Ice prickled under Jaime's gilded cuirass. "Then ride to Varys," he said. "Tell him Ser Jaime commands the queens. No, Princess Elias, immediate escort to the dungeons." "To the dungeons?" "They're the safest vaults left. Lies tasted sour, but lies might buy minutes." Trant bowed, uncertainty knitting his brow, yet habit won out. He clattered away toward the Tower of the Hand. Good. One obstacle turned aside, but time was a blade at his neck. Jaime moved, swift as thought, through hidden passages known only to the Kingsguard and Varys's whisper network. He descended spiral stairs lit by flickering rushlights, passed beneath archways where cobwebs draped forgotten sigils. Storm, stark, even Summerhall's fallen stag crowned with smoke. Each level deeper bled away the roar of the city until only his heartbeat pounded in his ears. The cellar smelled of cool stone, damp wool, old grief. Here, Aegon the Conqueror's servants had once stored casks of Dornish red. Now the barrels lay burst, fragrant rivers soaking straw. A bitter irony that lifeblood spilled while real blood thundered outside. Quiet voices drifted from the queen's apartments. Jaime paused at a kink in the corridor. He glimpsed Elia seated upon a low divan, her black hair tumbling over a silk mantle the color of dusk. Rhaenys huddled at her knee, clutching a wooden dragon. Aegon lay asleep in a wicker cradle, unaware of history's claws poised above. A single torch cast wavering light, turning mother and children into fragile statues. Across from them stood Varys in spider black. His powdered face glimmered with sweat, yet his voice remained soothing, almost hypnotic. Milk poured into wine. "Princess," he whispered, "the riders at the gate were your brother's son and spear. If you trust me, there is still a narrow path to safety." Elia's eyes lifted, wide and luminous. "Arianne?" she breathed, hope trembling like a bird in her chest. Jaime stepped from shadow. "Not Arianne. Me." His voice rasped harsher than intended. For a heartbeat, fear flashed across her face like summer lightning. She remembered the Lannister colors he wore, remembered smoke and swords at the September of Baelor. He knelt, removing his helm so she could read the earnest terror on his own features. "Princess, there is no time. My father's men will come. The mountain will come. I cannot let that happen." Varys inclined his pale head. "Ser Jaime and I have reached an accord." The eunuch folded his hands, rings glittering. "There is a postern gate beneath Maegor's holdfast, barred by charms old as Maester Maegon's reign. Few recall it, fewer can open it. Yet the tumblers answered to me once, and may again." "Why?" Elia asked, voice barely a whisper. "You served my husband." "I served the realm," Jaime said, and the words tasted truer than any oath spoken beneath a white sword tower. "Tonight the realm is these two children." He reached, careful, and took Rhaenys' small hand. She flinched, then stared at the golden lion embossed upon his gauntlet. "Will you let me protect you, little princess?" Rhaenys' chin lifted with unlikely dignity. "Are you a bad man?" "I try not to be," he said, though uncertainty gnawed him. "But I can wield a sword against bad men." Elia rose. She gathered Aegon, swaddled him tighter, kissed his brow. When she met Jaime's gaze, her dark eyes shone with fury and gratitude both. "Then let us hurry." The spider produced a ring of thin, antique keys, each tooth delicate as a butterfly wing. Jaime scooped Rhaenys into his off arm, surprised by her weight. She was half-grown, a willful colt of nearly 4. Varys snuffed torches as they went, swallowing each chamber in darkness, concealing tracks of flight. Their footsteps whispered over carpets charred at the edges, past collapsed mantles where half-melted dragon candles drooped like dying flowers. They reached an oaken door ribbed in bronze, ancient enough to remember Maegor's cruelty. Varys knelt, whispering lullabies to iron. Tumblers clicked, a sigh exhaled from deep within the keep, and the door swung inward onto a stairwell descending steep into the earth. Shadows swallowed them. Jaime's sword knocked stone, ringing softly. Rhaenys clutched his neck, her rapid breaths fluttering. He counted steps 11, 23, 40, until walls exhaled cool damp. The stair emptied into a vault lined with casks tall as tower spires and chained shut with rust-flecked steel. Cobwebs winked with dewdrops of wildfire, sickly green in the gloom. Jaime steered clear. One spark would turn them to wraiths of green flame. At the vault's far end, a grille sealed the passage. On its other side waited a sloping tunnel carved at some mad tyrant's whim, vanishing into night. Varys unlatched the grille, each hinge shrieking like a terror bird. Jaime winced and urged hurry. They squeezed through and followed the tunnel's bowels. Several times it branched. The eunuch chose left or right without pause, a spider sure of every thread. At last faint salt wind kissed Jaime's cheeks, Blackwater Bay's brine overlaid with soot. Rays of moonlight spilled through a fissure ahead. They emerged upon a narrow quay tucked beneath the castle cliff. Half-submerged pilings jutted from black water like broken teeth. One skiff waited, tethered by a fraying rope. Tar-coated hull, oars wrapped in wool to muffle stroke, a sand barrel to camouflage lantern flame. Jaime set Rhaenys gently within, then braced Elia as she climbed, still clutching Aegon. Varys followed, loosening rope. The cliffs above roared with muffled battle cries, yet here only waves slapped stone. "Row east," the eunuch murmured. "A friend waits beyond the chain tower, a fisherwoman loyal to Sunspear. Her sloop flies no banner." She will ferry you to Dragonstone first, then the narrow sea. He bowed low, cloak puddling like ink. This debt, Sir Jaime, I shall not forget. Jaime nodded. Words failed him. Gratitude felt inadequate, apology impossible. He took an oar. Varys pushed them off. Water closed around wood, rocking the skiff. Jaime bent to the pull and tug rhythm, each stroke a heartbeat. Sweat mingled with soot upon his brow. The city behind glowed hellish, a crown of flame upon midnight's brow. Bells told victory or dirge, and above them the red comet of conquest, the lion's banner, unfurled across the heavens. The chain boom's massive links glistened ahead, raised to bar fleeing ships. Yet Varys's friend must know a channel. Jaime steered toward the tower's base where swirling eddies betrayed a sluice gap wide enough for a skiff. Waves sucked them under the chain's shadow. Rhaenys gasped when barnacles scraped hull planks. Jaime ducked low. Iron links overhead dripped algae slime. For one breathless instant he feared they'd ground, but momentum carried them through. On the far side, the river widened into sparkling black glass. Freedom tasted of cold spray. A lantern winked from a sloop's bow, a single pulse thrice. Jaime answered with a hooded flash. The sloop glided near. A broad-shouldered woman swathed in patched gray leaned over the rail. Her face bore wind lines and the stubborn calm of one who has outwitted storms. "Passengers for the stepstones?" she asked softly. "Passengers for life," Jaime said. He passed Rhaenys up to her, then Elia and Aegon. The fisherwoman guided them below deck into a cabin rank with nets and tar. Jaime climbed last, coiling the boarding rope and casting off. The skiff drifted, empty as a cast-off skin, into current. Below decks, the cabin smelled of seaweed and oil lamps. Wicker cradles swung from rafters. 2 younger deckhands, one a boy no older than 12, prepared pallet and blankets. Elia settled, weary beyond years. Aegon stirred, mewling softly. Jaime knelt to calm him, clumsy in plate, yet the prince's fist curled around his thumb. Pure, unknowing trust that scalded deeper than wildfire. The sloop's sail unfurled with a whisper, catching a northerly puff. Deck timbers creaked. Jaime rose, removing his gauntlets. Gold caught lamplight as he laid sword and helm aside. On the deck above, gulls screamed. The city smokestack lit horizon orange. Memories battered him. Prince Rhaegar riding to Trident. Laughter shared with Ser Arthur beneath the Tower of Joy. He had been a boy of 16 then, hungry for honor. What was honor now but a corpse in golden steel? Yet perhaps, in legend's reckoning, saving this family might weigh more than the sins of Kingslayer. He leaned against the bulkhead while the boat cut water. Elia dozed in uneven spurts, eyelids fluttering like moths. Every shudder of distant thunder roused her, until she saw Jaime keep watch and settled again. Rhaenys curled under a woolen cloak, thumb in mouth. Aegon slept upon Elia's chest, lulled by her heartbeat. Hours passed. The lantern burned low, casting amber circles upon paneling. Jaime's head nodded, then jerked awake. Thoughts churned. How soon before Tywin discovered the postern? Would the gold cloaks hunt a fisherwoman? Would Stannis at Dragonstone offer sanctuary or chain them as hostages? Dawn's first pale bands seeped through the hatch, silvering Elia's cheeks. She woke, sat, drew her blanket close. "Sir Jaime," she murmured. "Why?" He searched for truthful words. "My sister loves her children. I wondered how it would feel to betray that love through silence." He exhaled. "And Rhaegar saved my life once at Summerhall, though he did not know it. This is a debt repaid." Elia's lashes glistened. "I told my husband that songs made him blind to daggers. Yet I loved him all the same." Her voice cracked. She brushed a kiss upon Aegon's brow. "Tell me they will grow to chase butterflies under Dorne's sky." "They will," Jaime promised, though steel and chance governed such hopes. He braced a hand on her shoulder, fierce and gentle. "I will see you to Sunspear if I must cross the gods' wood barefoot." Footsteps above interrupted. The hatch opened. Morning sun spilled gold. the fisherwoman's silhouette framed an azure horizon. "The wind favors us," she said. "Dragonstone by mid-afternoon. Beyond, the narrow sea lies calm as a mirror." Elia rose, spine straightening with regal grace. Rhaenys scurried to her side, clutching Jaime's cloak now draped about her shoulders. "Mother, look, water dragons." She pointed as flying fish broke surface beyond porthole, silver arrows against blue. Jaime gathered sword belt and helm. The fisherwoman descended with a steaming pot of barley broth and thick slices of brown bread. They ate in silence, save for children's murmurs. At each bite, Jaime tasted ash lingering on tongue, ghost of the burning city. When the sloop rounded Cape Wrath just before midday, Dragonstone's jagged towers clawed the sky, shadowy, foreboding, carved dragons snarling at passing gulls. Smoke curled from fumaroles, mingling with the city's far-off pall now reduced to gray smear. The tides here ran treacherous. Eddies tugged hull edges, yet the fisherwoman guided vessel deftly between basalt fingers. A war galley patrolled beneath Dragonstone's seaward wall. Its black banner bore a fiery heart, Stannis Baratheon's device. Oars dipped in disciplined cadence. A trumpet blared. Jaime's pulse quickened. Would the Lord of Dragonstone hail them with courtesy or chain? The sloop hove to. Baratheon soldiers brandished hooks. Jaime stepped onto deck, raised empty hands. "Parley," he called. "Passengers of peace." A knight in black and gold plate peered down. "Peace? In this hour?" Recognition sparked.
"Ser Jaime?"
"They say you slew your king." "I saved the realm," Jaime replied, voice flat. "And tonight I seek sanctuary for the Princess Elia Martell and her heirs." Murmurs rippled along the galley. The knight gestured. Ropes were tossed. Jaime assisted Elia across the gap. Aegon whined at sudden wind. Jaime wrapped his cloak about the child. Rhaenys followed, gaze steady. Deck planks thudded under their feet. Baratheon men crowded, yet spears remained lowered. Duty wrestled curiosity in every pair of eyes. Suddenly bells tolled from Dragonstone's highest tower, 2 slow knells. A boatswain shouted orders. Oars lifted. The galley pivoted toward the fortress harbor, towing the sloop astern. Jaime held the rail, searching volcanic cliffs for welcoming gestures. He found only watchers in black plate and mail, slow to trust, swift to judge. But they had children in arms. Perhaps that was shield enough. At the pier, Lord Stannis awaited. His face, austere as winter-stripped cliffs, betrayed no greeting. Purple bags bruised his eyes. His hairline had retreated farther since Jaime last saw him at Riverrun. He wore no crown, only the battle of the bastards' battered breastplate. Sea winds snapped his crimson cape. When Jaime knelt, steel gauntlets striking planks, Elia beside him, Stannis raised a hand. "Spare me ceremony," he said. "Explain your treason." Jaime rose, met that baleful gaze. "The king ordered the city burned. I answered by ending his reign. My father entered in strength. I answer by saving innocents his soldiers would slay." Stannis studied Elia's thin face, Rhaenys clinging to her skirts, the swaddled babe. Something softened in stone-hewn eyes. Storm's End remembers how Princess Elia's grandfather rode to lift a siege. He turned brisk. "Bring them ashore. Provision them. A raven must fly to Sunspear." Jaime exhaled. Relief coursed through him, hot as brandy. Elia's lips trembled in silent thanks. They followed Stannis along the pier, gulls shrieking overhead, Dragonstone's basalt behemoths glaring from ramparts. Each step Jaime tasted new fear. For the path ahead, for Tywin's wrath, for truth's Dornish knives might carve. Yet amid those fears a fragile ember glowed. He had chosen life over cruelty, honor over convenience. Perhaps somewhere beyond tomorrow, a bard would sing of the Kingslayer who forged redemption in night's darkest hour. They passed beneath the Dragon Gate. Shadows swallowed them as once the secret tunnel had. But this time no fear lurked behind. Instead, sanctuary waited, fickle but real. Jaime glanced back toward the smoky horizon where King's Landing smoldered, a dragon devoured by its own flame. He touched the pommel of his sword, felt the weight of yet untold chapters. For he had not escaped damnation, only postponed its judgment. Nonetheless, the children breathed, Elia's heart beat on, and for tonight at least, life had bested death. Banners cracked overhead. Somewhere within Dragonstone's stone veins of forge beat iron, echoing like the pulse of a realm rebuilding. Jaime Lannister stepped into dim corridors not as a lion's heir, not as Kingslayer, but as an unmasked soul seeking absolution. Dawn slanted through arrow slits, painting dusty shafts across their path. He followed the light. When the sun sank crimson that evening, Jaime stood upon a turret balcony. Dragonstone's courtyards below bustled with new refugees, jewelers from the city, maesters bearing ravaged tomes, a net of lives flung here by war's tide. He spotted Rhaenys chasing seabirds along the curtain wall, her laughter echoing. Elia watched from a bench, Aegon asleep across her lap, eyes tired yet alive. Life persisted, fragile yet defiant. A raven fluttered past, bound south. Dornish deliverance rode its wings. Jaime held a wineskin Stannis had pressed upon him, arbor red, the color of sunset. He sipped, letting warmth spread. The weight of armor had been stripped. He wore a plain wool surcoat. No one here bowed to lions, nor cursed kingslayers. They measured him anew in deeds, not sigils. Far across the bay, a dull orange glow still hovered where King's Landing burned, but winds were shifting, banishing smoke. He recalled Cersei's smile, Tywin's hard eyes, Joffrey's petulance. Ghosts of a life gilded and empty. Would they spit his name in fury? Very likely. Yet he found quiet comfort in imagining Tyrion raising a toast somewhere. Amused. Night stars pricked the heavens, bright and cold. Jaime exhaled, breath misting. The narrow sea beyond promised exile or adventure. The Dornish sands, uncertain welcome. Whatever came, he had chosen this. For once, the choice felt entirely his own. A soft step behind drew him from reverie. Elia joined him, cloak drawn tight. "The maester says we sail at dawn," she murmured. "Stannis' own galley. The Lord of Dragonstone is stern, but not cruel," Jaime replied. She nodded. "I will remember that." Silence stretched, filled with surf. At length she touched his forearm. "Will you come with us?" The offer startled him, bright as wildfire. Sunspear's heat, Dorne's strangeness, peace far from Tywin's reach. Yet vows bound him still to a Kingsguard without a king. "I cannot," he said. "Not yet, but I will see you safely to the Water Gardens. After, who knows?" Elia studied him. "Then whatever gods watch, I pray they guide you." She lifted on tiptoe, kissed his cheek, soft, sorrowful, real. Jaime closed his eyes to memorize the feeling. When he opened them, she had returned to the stare. He remained, wine forgotten, gaze pinned to the stars. Somewhere amid that glittering host rode the spirits of every vow he had kept and broken. They shimmered without judgment. He breathed deep, tasting salt and possibility. Tomorrow he would sail again, further from the burning past. Perhaps dawn would reveal a man changed. For now, the night was his, and in its hush he could almost forgive himself. An hour before dawn, Dragonstone stirred. Sailors coiled ropes, soldiers hauled crates of grain and casks of water. The galley Black Betha floated at quay, her hull scarred but proud. A banner of the burning heart rippled from her mast, yet beneath it fluttered a smaller flag, Martell's sun and spear. The message was clear: sanctuary under watchful justice. Jaime oversaw cargo, mindful of balance. He had slept little, dreams haunted by wildfire devils. Still, exhaustion felt distant. Purpose hummed through bones. Rhaenys perched upon a barrel, swinging feet, asking questions about every rope knot. Jaime showed her sailors hitches. She repeated, tongue poking in concentration. Elia emerged with Aegon bundled. Dawn's first rays painted her features serene. She wore a plain blue gown, Martell brooch collar, a princess in exile's garb. Stannis arrived with parchment sealed in black wax. A warrant for safe conduct, he said. "Signed by myself and Lord Valerion." To Jaime he added, "When you return, answers will be demanded. I expect nothing less, my lord." A final horn blast signaled departure. Planks were hauled. Oars slid into water. Jaime stood at the stern rail beside Elia as Dragonstone receded, basalt dragons shrinking. Rhaenys waved vigorously to two kitchen girls she'd befriended hours earlier. Aegon slept, undisturbed. The sea shimmered violet. Wind pressed sail taut. The galley glided east. Ahead lay the stepstones, the free cities, perhaps a new Targaryen dawn if Viserys still lived. Jaime wondered what songs might bloom from this voyage. Ballads of a scarlet knight ferrying royalty to safety, redemption hammered from ruin. He smirked. Bards seldom sought truth, only beauty. Yet beauty thrummed here in salt-spiced air, in the steady beat of oars, in Elia's whispered lullaby. Jaime rested palms on cool rail, letting rhythm sink into marrow. He had begun a tale with no sure ending, but endings mattered less than the road's worth. Somewhere beyond waves Tywin's rage brewed, but Father's shadows grew small beneath open sky. The Black Betha sliced through dawn, and for the first time since boyhood Jaime felt the day rise without dread. They anchored that night off Qarth, the sapphire isle glinting under three-quarter moon. Local fishermen rowed out bearing baskets of spiced crab and fresh lemons, bartered for silver pennies Jaime found in a belt pouch. Elia insisted on paying from her own small purse. They compromised each half. Rhaenys devoured crab meat, butter streaking her chin. Even Aegon tasted lemon water from a damp cloth, tiny fists waving. Jaime walked the deck after others slept. Sea glass sparkled in tar seams, wind humming rigging like harp strings. In the distance, Tartha's mountains loomed gentle, unlike the jagged maw of Dragonstone. He imagined Catelyn stark somewhere to the north, unaware how many lives had pivoted on this single night. He thought of Brienne, Tartha's daughter, though he barely knew her then. Fate's web invisible, sticky, eternal. A soft cry drifted from the cabin. Jaime entered to see Elia pacing, babe fretful. "Teeth," she sighed. "He misses goat milk." Jaime fetched a wineskin of watered, honeyed milk Stannis's maester had provided. Aegon suckled, soothed. Elia sagged onto a berth, exhaustion carving hollows under her eyes. Jaime sat opposite. "We lost so much," she whispered. "My sister, my cousins at the Trident, our dreams of peace. Now this." Tears glimmered. "Yet I breathe." "Why?" he considered. "Perhaps so you may forge new dreams from old ruin." He gently clasped her hand. "And teach these children to shape a kinder world." She squeezed back, weak but warm. In that clasp they shared silent promise. No vows under sept bells, no banners. Only two souls thrown by tide into alliance. When moon set and stars dimmed, Jaime finally unbuckled sword and lay upon a coil of rope. Sleep claimed him like a tide. The galley threaded the stepstones, where pirates prowled narrow channels. Twice black sails appeared, but Black Betha's reputation warded off attack. On the third evening, off Bloodstone Island, pinnaces bore Dornish colors. Prince Oberyn Martell himself, crimson cloak billowing. He sprang aboard with panther grace, kissed Elia thrice, tears glittering upon lashes. He drew Rhaenys into arms, lifted Aegon high, laughter stained by grief. Then his eyes found Jaime. Silence, sharp as drawn steel, fell. Oberyn's smile vanished. He circled Jaime, predator to rival lion. "Kingslayer," he hissed. "My sister speaks your defense, yet I smell Lannister blood." Jaime met the viper's stare. "I will bleed it gladly before I break my word to her." Oberyn studied him, probing for weakness. At length he nodded, a curt bow. "Then Sunspear welcomes you, under trial of sand and sun. Come, Dorne awaits." He gestured. Escorts ferried Elia across. Rhaenys squealed delight at new boats. Jaime slung swordbelt, followed last. Bloodstone's harbor glowed copper under sunset. Dornish galleys with flared hulls waited, banners snapping. Sun and spear rampant upon field of orange. Drums pounded. Voices chanted Elia's name. Jaime felt dozens of stares, some curious, many hateful. He moved, cloak around face, yet gossip already spread. Oberyn led them through incense-thick corridors of his flagship, the Bright Spear. Elia was shown to a cushioned cabin. Jaime was lodged across the corridor, guarded by silent spearmen. Through shutter cracks he watched stars, listened to water slap hull, wondered if the cell was safer or more perilous than any dungeon. But when Rhaenys knocked quietly, "Ser Jaime, will you tell a story?" The guards allowed her inside. He spun fables of lions rescuing desert birds until she slept curled against his tunic. Later Elia came to fetch her daughter. Their eyes exchanged quiet gratitude. 3 days later Sunspear's white walls rose against desert horizon. Jaime tingled with awe. He had heard tales, yet none matched the sun-bleached grandeur. Towers shaped like spears, causeways suspended above glittering sea, water gardens lush with singing fountains. Crowds thronged piers, petals floating in heated air. Oberyn's principal wife, Ilaria, greeted Elia with tears. Daughters of the Spear danced, copper bells chiming. Yet as Jaime disembarked, shadows gathered. Some Dornish knights spat. Women cursed Tywin's name. A whisper, "Kingslayer," slithered. Guards formed cordon. Oberyn strode beside Jaime, curved spear in hand. "Hatred runs hot here," he murmured. "I may cool it or stoke it. That depends on you." Jaime inclined his head. "I will stand answerable." His own voice surprised him, steady, resigned. Oberyn's eyes glinted admiration or amusement. "Then let trial wait until after feast. My niece's hunger for tales." Feast. Jaime followed into vaulted hall where mosaic floors depicted Nymeria's 1,000 ships and Rhaenys' dragon at Storm's End. Tables overflowed with pomegranate, spiced goat, sweet wine chilled with snow from the Greenblood's peaks. Elia reclined upon cushioned dais, children at her side. She seemed lighter already, color returning. Musicians plucked lutes.
Dancers spun silks.
Yet talk of war pressed at edges. Ravens from King's Landing spoke of Robert Baratheon crowned. Loyalists flocked to Dragonstone. Eddard Stark marched south. Jaime felt world shifting again, uncertain. Where would he stand? Late, when torches guttered low, Oberyn summoned Jaime to a small arbor. Moonlight dappled fig leaves. Viper offered wine. Jaime sipped, wary. Oberyn spoke. "You saved my sister and her heirs. Yet your family killed her niece Elia Dane at the Trident, and your father sacked cities with no remorse. My people will demand your blood." "I expected nothing else," Jaime said. "Yet I tire of blood debts." Oberyn poured more wine. "Give me truth instead. Did you love your sister's children?" Jaime flinched. "More than life." A heartbeat later, he realized truth had slipped unguarded. Oberyn's brow rose, reading layers beneath. Jaime cleared throat. "They are mine to protect. All children should be." He met Oberyn's gaze unflinching. Mist drifted off distant sea. The Viper's eyes softened fractionally. "Then perhaps there is a path not paved with skulls." He extended hand. Jaime hesitated, then clasped it. The grip was firm, warm. "Tomorrow," Oberyn said, "you will kneel before the princes of Dorne and answer questions. Speak plainly. If you convince them, you may live. If not," he shrugged. Moonlight kissed steel ring on his finger. "The deserts welcome ghosts." Jaime nodded. "I will not lie." They parted. Jaime traversed hushed corridors to his chamber, heart steady. Trial awaited, yet the scales might measure more than sin. They might weigh mercy, courage, future. He wondered if Cersei felt any of that across the burning river of politics in King's Landing. He wondered if he would ever see her again, and what he would feel if he did. Guilt flared, soft as embers now. She would call him fool, yet he felt strangely unburdened. In the chamber, he found Rhaenys asleep on his bed, clutching his lion cloak. Elia sat brushing Aegon's downy hair. She smiled timidly. "The water gardens sing," she whispered. "For the first time in moons, I believe we may hear them without fear." Jaime removed boots, sank onto a stool. Rest, princess. Tomorrow we face suns and spears together. She nodded, smoothing baby's blanket. Lamps dimmed. Outside, a fountain laughed like silver bells. Jaime closed eyes, envisioning a world where children laughed louder than war drums. Perhaps tomorrow he would take first steps toward that world. Sleep, when it came, braced him like a gentle tide, washing clean the blood smoke of King's Landing. He dreamt of golden lions and desert roses entwining beneath dawn's crimson sky. Morning found Jaime in a sunlit courtyard before Dorne's ruling council. Prince Doran seated in carved driftwood chair, Oberyn pacing behind, copper-skinned nobles arrayed on tiered benches. Spears gleamed, eyes burnt with suspicion. Jaime knelt upon tiles painted with shifting sand patterns. A breeze carried smell of sweet dates. Oberyn's voice rang. Jaime Lannister, sworn knight of the Kingsguard, stands accused of oath-breaking, regicide, and complicity in the sacking of King's Landing. He claims defense of innocence. We shall hear him. Questions speared: why kill the king? Why trust Varys? Why risk father's wrath? Jaime answered plain, each word steady. He spoke of wildfire caches, of Aerys' final order to burn every man, woman, and child. He spoke of hearing Riella's screams of childbirth turning to whimpers unsaved, of seeing Elia's quiet dignity despite fever and pain, of glimpsing in Rhaenys the spirited bravery he cherished in his own lost youth. He did not paint himself hero. He exposed doubts, weaknesses, fear that he might fail. Truth rang, a blade sharpened by confession. Murmurs rolled. Prince Doran leaned forward, face unreadable. At last he lifted a parchment. A raven from Lord Stannis corroborates Ser Jaime's account. The king was slain before the gates opened. The wildfire stores were seized. Lord Stannis attests Ser Jaime acted to save the city. Silence swelled, punctured by desert wind. Oberyn approached Jaime. In his hand lay a short spear, its steel tip glinting. He laid it at Jaime's feet. "Rise," he commanded. Jaime stood, heart pounding. Oberyn announced, voice carrying under colonnades. "By blood of Nymeria, by sun and spear, Dorne absolves Jaime Lannister of crimes against House Martell. Let him be guest within our walls until he chooses his own road." Cheers erupted, scattered but real. Some nobles crossed arms in grudging acceptance. Jaime bowed, relief flooding limbs. Oberyn murmured at his ear, "One debt paid, Lion. Many more wait." Jaime nodded. "I will answer them." Days lengthened. Jaime walked Sunspear's water gardens, taught Rhaenys sword stances with wooden lath, watched Aegon grow into laughter. He sparred Oberyn at dawn, both emerging bruised and grinning. Elia penned letters to Dragonstone and Storm's End, weaving alliances. Dorne buzzed with war's distant drums, but within those gardens peace blossomed. One evening Jaime received a raven. Lord Eddard Stark had taken King's Landing, Robert Baratheon crowned, Cersei named Queen Consort. Tywin commands holdfast at Harrenhal. Jaime's stomach twisted, yet beneath the dread lay strange calm. He had chosen his path. The realm might follow new currents, but these children's futures glimmered within his reach. He would not abandon them. Elia joined him under blood-orange sunset. "You read the news?" "I did." "You could ride north, reclaim your place," she said gently. He traced mosaic edge with boot. "Or remain where my sword shelters something pure." She smiled. "Then stay. Dorne is broad enough for lions." He met her gaze. In its depths flickered gratitude, friendship, perhaps budding affection. He exhaled. "For now," he said, "the spear welcomes the lion, and the lion stands guard." Up above, first stars winked. Nightingales sang. Jaime felt within his chest a pulse no longer muffled by guilt. He had walked through fire and found, on the far side, dawn. And though the road ahead promised storms, Tywin's vengeance, Cersei's demands, Robert's suspicion, he would meet them with steel tempered not by pride, but by mercy. Somewhere, maybe, songs would remember that mercy. High above the dunes a kestrel hovered, wings stilled against the baking updraft, its sharp eyes following the long column winding south from Sunspear toward the shadow-stained mountains of the Red Waste. Standard-bearers trudged in the van, scarlet sun and spear snapping in the furnace wind, beside a smaller flag of gold and crimson without device, a blank field that proclaimed the presence of a knight excused from his lion. Jaime rode beneath that blankness, mail shirt hidden beneath a loose, sand-colored burnous. Around him marched 50 spearmen of the Mantry's cohort, Oberyn's personal guard, their helms fluted like serpent hoods. The prince had insisted on an escort. Raiders haunted the deeper wastes, and farther on, sky-blue riders of the Dothraki Khalasar camped beyond Qarth's salt flats. Elia had balked at so large a retinue. Speed, she said, was armor enough, but Jaime had agreed with Oberyn. He knew how swiftly innocence could be sundered by steel. He would not wager the children's lives on luck. They had been 12 days on the march, following the old Rhoynish caravan track that Nymeria's exiles had once cut toward the Greenbloods' headwaters. Elia rode in a curtained palanquin that shaded Aegon from the sun's white spear. Rhaenys preferred the saddle, first astride a stubborn sand mare gifted by Oberyn, now slumped in exhaustion against Jaime's chest as her own pony plodded beside them. The girl's skin glimmered with sweat and dust, cheeks rosy red above a smear of dates. Each dawn she had set off with reckless glee, peppering Jaime with questions about Braavos, the narrow sea, the way Myrish crossbows differed from Dornish scorpions. Each dusk she folded like a wilted bloom, weightless in his arms. He never complained. In her trusting drowse, the Kingslayer found an absolution no septon could grant. Sometimes he dared imagine a future where she rode beside him in tournaments across the free cities, where he lifted her upon his shoulders to watch the mummers of Pentos. But that path lay behind a thicket of perils still unseen. For now, the desert, the day's heat hammered even hardened spearmen. Chainmail hissed with every stride. Waterskins sloshed down parched throats. At intervals they passed cairns erected centuries ago, piled bones bleaching within, victims of old raids or sudden storms. The captain, Ser Jalabar Toland, would have marched through the black noon, but Elia had insisted on halting in a shallow arroyo where a tamarisk grove nodded thin shade above a spring. Jaime dismounted with Rhaenys in arms, boots sliding on talus. Sand gnats danced in veils. He set the girl gently at the water's edge. She knelt to scoop handfuls into her mouth, then splashed her cheeks, gasping at the chill. Elia emerged from her litter, silk shawl fluttering. She carried Aegon against her hip, the prince's hair now grown into dark ringlets. He gurgled at sight of his sister wet and laughing, kicked stubby legs. Elia lowered to the grass-rimmed pool, eased the babe to touch the water. Aegon shrieked delight so loud the escort grinned. Even grim Jalabar's stern lips twitched. Jaime knelt across from Elia. His own face felt caked in grit. He dipped both hands, sluiced cheeks, rinsed golden hair that had darkened with dust. Droplets sparkled like hammered copper where they fell on his burnous. The water tasted faintly mineral but pure. He filled a tin cup, carried it to Elia. Their fingers brushed at the handoff. She drank slow, closed eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "The prince's thirst is fierce as any lion's." "I have met fiercer," Jaime answered, nodding to Aegon, who pummeled the pool with tiny fists. They shared a small laugh. From higher ground, Oberyn watched beneath a parasol, conferring with two scouts who had returned at gallop from the forward ridge. The prince's hawk features were harder now, lined by unrelenting glare. Jaime recognized the expression, half duty, half dread. Wherever the scouts had ridden, trouble brewed. Rhaenys flopped onto her back, arms flung wide. The sky was an endless turquoise. "Tell me a story," she begged without opening eyes, "about the Kingsguard before they turned bad." Jaime sat on the bank. "The Kingsguard do not turn bad," he said gently. "Only men who forget why they swore. That's what grandmother says about maesters." Rhaenys rolled to her side, chin balanced on palm. "But you remember. Some days," he admitted. "Shall I tell of Ser Ryam Redwine, who fought on 7 decks of the Conqueror's fleet?" She nodded. So Jaime spun the tale, of brine-lashed rigging, cutting nets beneath moonlight, Ryam dueling corsair princes on slipper decks. His voice wove through tamarisk branches. Nearby spearmen paused, listening. Aegon burbled as if timing suspenseful beats. Elia rested her head on Jaime's knee, lulled by cadence. When he finished, Oberyn approached, shadow lengthening across the pool. "A charming yarn," the prince said. "But perhaps we need sterner counsel. Scouts cite dust plumes 6 leagues east, riders many. Call Vazhak's outriders or a slaver column from new guys. Either would cut our path." Jaime rose, brushing sand from knees. "How long before they flank?" "Sunset at latest." Oberyn's fingers drummed spear haft. "We can veer south toward the Singing Sands oasis. Water for 2 days waits there, and a ruined fortress." "Ruined?" Elia sat up, gathering Aegon. "Can it shelter children?" "Stones still stand," Oberyn assured. "The lions of old Valyria built strong." He turned to Jaime. "I need your sword on our westernmost flank. Jalabar will command the center. I'll ride the vanguard to draw their eye away from the Palanque." Jaime glanced at Elia. She had gone pale, yet her chin lifted. "Do it," she said. "I will keep the children below stone. Sunspear's guard will stand." They broke camp swiftly. Spears slid into sheaths, skins refilled. Jaime hoisted Rhaenys before him on the saddle, secured her with a scarf. She clutched his forearms, eyes wide but fearless. The caravan split. Oberyn's vanguard of 30 lancers kicked dust ahead on blood-red mares. Jalabar's shield wall surrounded Elia's palanquin like a moving dune. Jaime and 9 outriders took the western ridge, where gnarled acacias cast spindly shadows on baked clay. The afternoon sun leaned westward, red as a smoldering forge. Jaime's mount snorted at the heat. Sweat darkened the burnous at his spine, yet each beat of hooves stirred cold specters from memory. Battlefields of the Trident, the wild rush of combat along white walls. He told himself this fight differed. He rode not for father's ambition, nor for mad kings, but for lives he cherished. Steadied him. Near dusk the ridge descended into a shallow basin carpeted by slate chips. Beyond, the oasis waited, its date palms fanning silhouettes above a low fort. A trapezoid keep of fused black stone, collapsed on one corner but still formidable. A narrow spring gleamed within mud walls. Oberyn's banner already snapped atop the tallest tower, crimson in the dying light. The vanguard had arrived first. Jaime's flank approached from west as Jalabar's center spilled into the basin. Just then horns wailed behind, the shrill ululation of Dothraki. Dust roiled along the far ridge like a storm front. Through whirling grit Jaime glimpsed riders in bone-white paint, araks flashing. Their ponies thundered with effortless grace. "Spears to wedge," Jalabar bellowed. Dornish ranks shuffled, shields locking. Jaime urged his horse up the slope to gain vantage. He counted perhaps 100 riders. Small for a Khalasar, but enough to overwhelm if charge struck true. Yet Oberyn's lancers had taken position south of the fort, bows unslung. The Dothraki angled toward the plunder they presumed easiest, the palanquin. Rhaenys trembled against Jaime's cuirass. "Fireflies," she whispered, misreading the glinting blades. "Bright, but scary." "Hold tight," Jaime murmured. He kicked heels. His destrier leapt down the ridge to intercept. 9 outriders followed. Wind carried the stink of horse sweat and blood. Araks gleamed curved and cruel. Jaime dropped visor, drew sword bright as hammered dawn. At 30 yards he reined left, presenting flank to protect Jalabar's formation. At 20, Rhaenys gasped and ducked behind his back. Jaime shifted weight, knees steady. At 10, he loosed a roar, echoing Tywin's old charge cry yet laced with his own defiance. Steel struck bone in a splintering crack. The first raider toppled, Arak still raised. Jaime's blade slid through collar, blood spraying his breastplate. His horse crashed shoulder against a pony, sending both tumbling. A spray of sand blinded him. He hacked by instinct, felt resistance give. The air rang like anvils. Dothraki circled, hooting. One hurled a whip toward Rhaenys. Jaime wrenched bridle, catching lash on shield edge. An outrider skewered the whipman, but another rider's arrow grazed Jaime's thigh, slicing leather. Pain flared. He ignored it, pivoted to face new threat. Up the slope Jalabar's wedge held, the Dothraki shied from hedgehog spears. South of the fort Oberyn's archers loosed in rippling volleys. Arrows arced silver then vanished into dust clouds, toppling riders. The skirmish blurred into a maelstrom of hoofbeats and glittering moonlit steel. Jaime's sword grew slick. Each breath rasped hot dust. A cry behind, one Dothraki had slipped past, galloping for the palanquin. Jaime dug spurs, leapt over a fallen rider, chased, but Jalabar's lieutenant met the raider in time. The Arak deflected, spear punching through chest. The palanquin's curtain fluttered. Jaime glimpsed Elia peering out, face white. She swiftly drew it closed. Gradually the dust cleared. Dothraki lay strewn like broken dolls. Those still mounted wheeled away, retreating to ridgeline where they gathered shaken spoils and vanished into gathering dark. Oberyn's horns sounded victory. Dornish cheers answered, though tempered by exhaustion. Jaime dismounted, sliding Rhaenys to ground. She hugged him wordless, then hid face in his cloak. He stroked her hair. A squire approached, trembling, to tend his horse and clean blade. Jaime limped. The arrow graze burned like fire ants. Oberyn rode up, helm feathered with red plume. "Well struck," he said. "3 headless hours to your tally." Jaime glanced at the field. "All men bleed," he said, voice hoarse. "How many did we lose?" 7 lancers, 5 spearmen. Oberyn's jaw tightened. "Yet the children live, and so do we." He offered Jaime a wineskin, sour Dornish red. Jaime drank gratefully, letting the tannins scald dust from throat. Overhead the sky faded from copper to indigo. First stars winked. Fires were lit within the ruined keep. Spearmen carried wounded inward. Jalabar's men dragged dead Dothraki aside. Rhaenys followed Jaime into the oasis walls, still clutching his cloak. Inside the courtyard a fountain trickled, miracle among cracked masonry. Elia awaited at its edge, Aegon bundled against her chest. She stepped forward, touching Jaime's face with trembling fingertips. "Are you hurt?" she whispered. "Only scratched." He managed a smile that felt brittle. "Your brother's archery kept half of them at bay. Elia Martell owes him thanks," she said, though her gaze remained on Jaime. She beckoned Rhaenys into embrace, kissed dust-grimed hair. "My brave girl." They slept within a vaulted chamber where basalt pillars still buttressed a ceiling scalloped like dragon wings. Cots were laid. Braziers kept the chill at bay. Jaime stripped mail, washed wound with vinegar. The sting drew curses. Elia knelt to bandage, steady, practiced. Her knuckles brushed bare thigh. Something electric leapt between them. Neither spoke. When done, she pressed a kiss to cloth, rose, and bade him rest. Sleep came fitful. Dreams twisted. Kingsguard white cloaks stained green with wildfire. Tywin's voice thundered across desert, brandishing Elia's severed crown. Cersei beckoned from a marble balcony, face hidden by lion mask, while Rhaenys clung to Jaime's leg crying. He woke near dawn drenched in sweat. Outside birds cawed among date palms. Sunlight spilled gold through shattered embrasures. In the courtyard squires boiled water. Butchers carved goat legs for breakfast. Rhaenys giggled as a kitten found her bowl. The sight eased Jaime's heart. Oberyn conferred with Jalabar. They would skirt the Red Waste, follow a coastal trail to Qarth where water was surer and slavers rare. From there, a Myrish cog chartered by Varys awaited to sail them up the Jade Gates to Braavos, then across the narrow sea. Jaime approved. Sea voyages troubled many, but ships offered fewer ambushes. Elia agreed as well, though worry clouded her eyes. Rumor said the Braavosi Sea Lord weighed fealty to new King Robert. Yet the free cities prized coin above crowns. Sunspear's coffers could purchase courtesy. They struck camp at Second Bell. The fort had guarded a spring and store vaults. Now Dornish hands repaired gaps with salvaged timber. Oberyn left 2 injured lancers and 5 spearmen to garrison until relief arrived. They raised Sunspear's banner over the keep, a beacon to future caravans. Jaime watched the flag's silk ripple against brightening sky, a smear of red and gold twinned to dawn. Felt like a promise. The past might scar, but new colors could still fly. The following days passed with cautious ease. No raider bands harried them. Vultures wheeled but kept distant. Nights cooled. Stars like silver daggers scattered upon velvet. Jaime taught Rhaenys to read constellation lore, Nymeria's crown, the lion's claw, the winged crone of old guys. She absorbed myths with unquenchable hunger, naming half the sky by the time they reached the salt flats. On the 9th morning, water haze revealed distant spires. Qarth, city of bones and turquoise domes, half mirage above shimmering plain. Merchant caravans dotted approach roads, elephant-drawn palanquins, spice wagons heavy with cinnamon. The sight electrified Rhaenys. She begged to ride at point with Oberyn. Jaime allowed it, riding close behind, nerves taut. Qarth's walls required bribes and careful tongues, but Oberyn carried ivory glyphs of passage bought from the pureborn themselves. At midday they entered through the western gate, under carved pillars depicting shy maidens offering olive branches to dragons. Within, avenues of scented cedar bustled with perfumers, gem cutters, silk-draped courtesans whose cosmetic tears glinted silver. Qarthine crowds stared openly at Dornish escort. Dark armor, sun-soft children, a tall western knight with golden beard. Jaime felt like some exotic beast paraded for coin. Yet no malice came, only curiosity. Their hosts awaited at the Rainbow Market. A guild of spice merchants owed favors to Oberyn's agents. Quartermasters stabled horses, arranged rooms in a marble manse off Shadow Wing Street. Elia's suite dripped with jasmine petals. There, at sunset, the Dornish company reclined on ivory couches around low tables piled with candied lotus and chilled persimmon wines. Sheer screens opened to a courtyard where moon lilies floated upon jade pools.
Criquescent.
A sense of peace settled, fragile as glass but sweet. Jalabar dozed, boots on ottoman. Oberyn debated fencing forms with a Myrish blade dancer beneath paper lanterns. Jaime stood on a balcony overlooking the harbor. Lantern-lit junks and black galleys dotted the bay, sails furled. Stars brushed water. Elia joined him, shawl of pale violet about shoulders. "The children sleep," she said. The perfume of sandalwood lingered. They dreamed of sapphire-eyed falcons. "Better than Iraq screams," Jaime answered, sipping lemon water. He glanced at her profile, the soft curve of cheekbone, lashes sweeping. Something thrummed in his chest. She sensed it, turned, met his gaze. "You saved them again," she said. "And me. I swore to. But more than vow. I see weight in your eyes, Jaime. A penitent knight wearing grief like second skin." She placed a hand on his forearm. "Let me share it." He wanted to laugh, to protest. Instead, words poured. He told her of Cersei's hold on his childhood. Twin fires impossible to douse. Of Ares's madness whispering inside his dreams. Of father's cold pride molding sons into tools. His voice cracked. Elia listened, silent as the moon. When he faltered, she slipped fingers into his, laced them tight. "Pain shapes us," she said, "but we choose whether to carve others with it or craft something gentler." Her thumb traced his knuckle. "Tonight, choose gentleness." Jaime swallowed. The harbor lights shimmered. He leaned forward, slow, seeking permission. Elia rose on toes. Their lips brushed, tentative. A wave broke far below. The second kiss lingered. Heat curling sighs between them, sorrow alchemized to need. She drew back, eyes shining. "We tread perilous trails," she whispered, "but a single joy along them can fortify a lifetime." Footsteps padded behind. Rhaenys, sleepy-eyed, dragging a stuffed camel. Jaime and Elia parted, sharing a quiet smile. The girl clambered onto his arm. "Had a bad dream," she mumbled. Jaime kissed her brow. "Would a story heal?" She nodded. So he sat upon a cushioned settee, Rhaenys curled against flank, Elia across with Aegon stirring in cradle. He told of Serwyn of the Mirror Shield facing the dragon Uryx, of illusions and courage. His narrative soothed the child. By the final sentence, she slept once more. Elia rose, brushed fingers through his hair. "Your heart is kinder than your name," she said. He caught her wrist, pressed lips to palm. "For the children," he murmured. "For us," she replied, before withdrawing into chambers. Jaime remained in the courtyard until lanterns guttered. He pondered the lines he had crossed, and those yet to cross. Cersei's silhouette lingered on memory's stage. Rage, betrayal, but he found no guilt now, only inevitability. His life had diverged the night wildfire glowed behind the Iron Throne. He had stepped onto a road that led here, to moonlit jasmine and quiet breaths of sleeping innocence. Whatever storms brewed, he would shield this peace. 3 days later, the Myrish Cog Sea Hare moored at Qarth's pier. Its hull, tar-black and slim, bore carved sea hares along railings. Captain Lacanara, an olive-skinned woman with silver nose ring, welcomed Oberyn with practiced aplomb, accepted chest of Sunspear coin equal to half her cargo. She promised swift passage to Braavos, hugging the Jade Gates, then cutting west across summer sea currents. Hold cabins were aired, silks draped bunks, rations of fig bread and strong water stored. Before dawn, Jaime stood at prow with Oberyn, watching Qarth recede colors of gray pearl. A gentle breeze filled lateen sails. Rigging hummed. Elia's laughter floated from aft deck as she showed Rhaenys gulls gliding escort. Soon city walls blurred. Only desert haze rimmed horizon.
Oberyn sippet kein rum.
"You know what awaits us in Braavos," he said. "Spies for every crown. Some may recognize you. The Iron Bank sponsors rumor generously." "I will keep hood raised," Jaime replied. He flexed wounded thigh. Scab tugged. "Robert wants my head, Cersei my heart, father my obedience. Let them want." The viper smiled. A lion grown claws of conscience. Old gods amused themselves. He lifted flask in toast. To new balances. Ship life settled. Rhaenys ran feral from stem to stern, wrangling deckhands into puppet shows. Jaime sparred Oberyn each dawn, footwork adjusting to rolling deck. Elia tutored Rhaenys in numbers and Rhoynish script. Jaime sometimes listened, surprising himself by reciting stanzas from memory. Each night, when gulls vanished and stars blanketed blackness, Jaime and Elia shared starlight conversations tucked behind billowed sails. They spoke of Nymeria's voyages, of dragons lost, of children's futures. One night she rested her head against his shoulder, hand on his chest where slow heartbeat thrummed. Words faded. Waves spoke for them. Mid-voyage, a squall descended from summer sea, slicing masts like lances. Sea hare bucked upon foam, sails reefed to slivers. Lightning pronged sky. Jaime lashed rope about waist, helping crew furl lines. Rain-stung eyes. Amid crash of thunder, he saw Elia at hatch clutching Aegon, wide-eyed yet calm. He shooed her below, returned to struggle. Rhaenys vomited over rail, sobbed. Jaime scooped her, secured to mast until gale eased. At dawn, sea smoothed, sails unfurled with sigh. Captain Lacanara commended both lion and viper for bravery. The storm took a yardarm, but no lives. 2 weeks later, the Titan of Braavos rose, half hidden in sea mist. Colossus of weathered bronze straddling harbor mouth, torch ablaze. Sea hare's red pennant fluttered as she slipped between Titan's legs. Horns boomed thunder. Rhaenys squealed delight, clapping. Aegon gurgled. Elia gazed at Giant with awe tinged by dread. Every crossing under that gaze measured one's fate, Braavosi claimed. Harbor thronged with far coast cogs, galleys, whalers hung with bird-wing sails. The air smelled of brine, tar, smoked eel. At the purple harbor wharf, a scribe of the Sea Lord boarded bearing parchment of tolls. Oberyn produced letters of credit sealed by Iron Bank and Sunspear's signet. The scribe bowed, stowing parchments in lacquer box. Yet his eyes lingered on Jaime's gilded hair beneath hood. Recognition flickered. That night, lodged in a canal-side townhouse of cinnamon brick, Jaime patrolled shadowed corridors. Windows overlooked moonlit water where purple lanterns bobbed on merchant skiffs. He sensed watchers across canal balconies. Masked courtesans or spies. Braavos breathed intrigue. He kept sword near. On the third morning, a note found him upon breakfast tray. A scrap of vellum bearing only the sigil of the faceless men. A skull half white, half black. Beneath, a single line in Valyrian glyphs. The debt of dragon's blood is not forgotten. Oberyn read it, brow furrowing. A threat, or invitation. Jaime's lips thinned. He remembered stories of faceless justice. Elaya's children had Targaryen blood. So too did kings slain by Lannisters. The coin of death circled. Elia placed a calming hand on his. We do not yield to whispers. Yet worry pooled in her dark eyes. She requested Oberyn expedite arrangements. A Braavosi caravel, the Nightingale, prepared to sail for Old Volantis, then hide along Roine tributaries until wars cooled. Oberyn consulted merchants. Coin flowed. Nightingale would depart on next high tide. That afternoon Jaime donned plain leathers, hood deep, to purchase supplies, maps, preserved cheese, dwarfish crossbows favored by sailors. In the Silk Harbor market he sensed a tale. A lank youth with eelskin boots. Jaime ducked into tapestry stall, circled behind crates. When boy followed, Jaime pressed dagger to throat, hissed question. The youth stammered, paid by gold cloak agents traveling under Lord Aaron's warrant. They watched for a kingslayer near Braavos. Jaime released him with warning. Fear would scatter truth. He returned to townhouse. Elia awaited in courtyard, wearing traveler's cloak of midnight blue. Rhaenys chased pigeons. Aegon napped in wicker cradle. Oberyn paced in conversation with a masked Bravo lord whose scabbard bore moons. Plans were made. At dusk they would slip aboard Nightingale via Postern Quay, avoiding customs. Jalabar's men faced long negotiation for arms, but would follow in a fortnight. Dusk bled crimson. The party filed along narrow alleys, cobbles slick with canal mist. Torches flickered. Somewhere a tavern spilled raucous lute music. But nearer, silence clung. Jaime's senses tingled. He caught faint scrape of boot. He signaled Jalabar with 2 fingers. The spearmen faded into shadows. They reached the postern, an archway opening onto a small pier where Nightingale rocked. Captain Salda Quayle, a stout woman with salt and pepper curls, stood ready. Torches elsewhere had been dimmed. Elia advanced, but a cloaked figure emerged from stairwell blocking the arch. Another at opposite end. 5 more materialized on balconies, crossbows cocked. Jaime stepped forward, hand on pommel. State your claim. The central figure pushed back hood mail, face smooth as marble, eyes of uncanny pale gray.
No emotion.
A bronze coin hung at ear. He spoke Valyrian softly. A dragon's debt must be paid. He drew a slim dagger curved like a tear. Oberyn's spear leveled, gleaming. You will not touch them. His voice rang steel. Death weighs but a breath, the assassin replied. He signaled. Crossbows lifted. Time froze. Jaime glimpsed Rhaenys' terror, Elia clutching Aegon, Jalabar tensing. He moved, swift as first kill of youth, to interpose. But before quarrels flew, a new shadow dropped from rooftop, cloak black as midnight. 2 crossbowmen jerked, throats slashed as the newcomer passed like night wind. The faceless staggered. Oberyn lunged, spear punching rib. Quarrels hissed, one grazing Jaime's shoulder, another thunking mast behind Elia. Jaime engaged second assassin, blades ringing. His wound reopened, hot blood staining sleeve, but adrenaline spared pain. Street lamps flared as bravos of Moon Singer's cult rushed in, drawn by noise. The remaining assassins fled into alleys, melting into dusk. The marble-eyed leader collapsed, dagger clattering, spear through lung. He coughed black froth, smiled with blood-stained lips. We are many faces, he whispered, then St. A fiend. The rooftop rescuer landed near Elia, removing mask to reveal a girl scarcely 17, eyes the green of churning sea. Arya, she told Oberyn, ignoring Jaime's astonishment. Need a ship to Westeros. This squares my passage. Oberyn blinked. The gods weave strange cloth. He bowed. The nightingale sails at once. Join us. Jaime sheathed sword. Blood dripped from torn sleeve. He glanced at Arya Stark. If rumor held, she had been missing since Ned's fall. Fate indeed twisted. She offered a nod, noting his hurt with grudging respect. They boarded quickly. Captain Quayle cast off, sails billowing to catch northbound breeze. Braavos's myriad lights receded, replaced by Titan's silhouette braced against starlit strait. On deck, Elia pressed cloth to Jaime's shoulder, binding wound anew. Rhaenys stayed near Arya, fascination blooming. Two girls, different worlds, drawn by shared shadows. When ship cleared harbor, Jaime leaned on rail, exhaustion colliding with relief. Waves slapped hull gentle. Elia beside him traced circles on his hand. He inhaled brine, exhaled fear. Oaths multiply, he murmured, but hearts choose paths oaths cannot foresee. Elia squeezed his hand. Then let our hearts counsel. Above, sails rustled silver. Nightingale coursed west across moon-paved sea, carrying a cargo of broken pasts and fragile futures. Behind, Braavos's horns faded. Ahead, the coast of Westeros lay cloaked in uncertainty. Robert's reign, Tywin's iron, Cersei's machinations. Yet Jaime felt lighter than when he left King's Landing Brimstone. Where once destiny dragged him in chains, now purpose pulled like celestial tide. He looked upon Elia, her profile kissed by lunar glow, and upon her children sleeping safe below deck. Oberyn kept vigil at prow. Arya perched near rigging talking quiet with Rhaenys about wolves and needle swords. For the first time, the Kingslayer dared believe redemption was no myth. It rode this ship, born of sharp choices and gentler ones alike, voyaging toward a horizon not yet scarred by fire. The sea swallowed their wake. Stars wheeled overhead. And somewhere deep within, Jaime Lannister's heart began to beat a brighter, steadier drum. The nightingale carved a shimmering furrow north-northwest, her twin lateen sails fat with a steady wind that smelt of oranges and hidden rain. Each dawn found fresh squalls painted on the horizon, yet none drew near. It was as though some benevolent god of journeys barred the seas for this fragile cargo of hope and half-healed regrets. Below decks, tar and pine pitched their mingled perfume through narrow gangways. Masking a faint bouquet of Dornish lavender, Elia insisted upon scattering outside the children's cabin. The scent soothed Aegon's restless slumbers, and even Rhaenys, normally too spirited to notice such niceties, breathed deeper for it. Jaime caught himself pausing outside that door more and more, listening for the particular hush of contented sighs. Once, those sounds would have seemed commonplace in the Red Keep nurseries. Now they felt like priceless relics salvaged from a broken temple. Oberyn kept the dawn watch. He perched at the prow with spear across his knees, letting salt wind stream scarlet ribbons from his hairknot. When Jaime padded up the companionway, boots muffled by thick rope matting, the prince did not turn, but raised a hand in casual salute. Still counting gulls? Or did the Titan's shadow linger in your thoughts? Jaime asked, settling beside him. Neither, Oberyn said. I was measuring the cadence of these waves. They break in threes, then in sixes. Somewhere an old sailor once told me that means twin currents run beneath us, one from the summer sea, one from the Bay of Crabs. They cross like lovers and quarrel like foes. Apt, Jaime murmured, watching foam streak along Nightingale's flank. Our own courses have crossed so. Quarreled too, Oberyn allowed, mouth slanting in wry amusement. Yet here we stand. They fell silent. Beneath, planks groaned softly. Rigging creaked as canvas trimmed itself to fit the wind's subtle shift. In the weed-churned distance, a pod of porpoises breached in sparkling arcs, silver under a low sun. Jaime felt the familiar itch to seize this scene and freeze it, one moment untainted by fear of pursuit or memory of blood. But time pressed relentlessly on like the very sea, unstoppable, all-embracing. The pod would vanish, the wind would veer. Somewhere in the gaps between heartbeats, the past would reach its long arm after them again. A gull shriek snapped him from reverie. Oberyn unfolded to standing. You'll take the next watch. I've letters to compose. More ravens to Sunspear? Some, but also to Storm's End. At Jaime's raised brow, the prince smiled thinly. Lord Stannis kept his word. I must return the courtesy. Besides, rumor says the Stormlands seethe under King Robert's new taxes. Friends in uneasy kingdoms are always worth the ink. Jaime nodded, though politics felt still like a distant murmur. His private concerns remained taut as harp strings. Cersei's likely fury, Tywin's certain wrath, Robert's suspicion that any brother of the Queen might harbor pretenders, and the silent ledger Jaime kept at the back of his mind, tallying every breath the children took against the price the realm would one day demand. He inhaled the wind, willing his thoughts to quiet. Mid-morning, Arya emerged from below decks, hair pulled back in a ragged knot, needle strapped at her waist. She scanned the deck like a stray cat mapping new territory, then joined Rhaenys near the mainmast where the older girl attempted to teach her a Dornish clapping rhyme. After several bungled verses, they dissolved into laughter. Jaime watched, charmed. Then he noticed Arya's cautious sideways glances, as though the merriment itself were a risk she had forgotten how to accept. Whatever roads the wolf girl had walked must have been lined with specters far darker than faceless assassins. He joined them after handing off watch to Jalabhar. Rhaenys instantly thrust a seashell toward him, its interior swirling rose and cream. Arya says you can hear dragons in these, she confessed, eyes dancing. I said the sea, silly, Arya corrected, cheeks reddening. But maybe dragons too, if you want. Jaime pressed the shell to his ear, cocked his head dramatically. I hear. A hungry lion complaining his breakfast was too small. Rhaenys squealed. Arya snorted. The shell passed between them until all heard variations of wind and fantasy. Elia, from the quarterdeck, paused her quiet counsel with Captain Quayle to smile at the scene, then returned to discussing charts that wove like riddles across a sun-whitened table. Later, as crimson evening bled across cloud banks, the nightingale sighted the ragged spears of Skagos far to port, jagged and half-shrouded in slate-gray mist. Captain Quayle ordered a 2-point shift west to skirt the island's rumored witch caves. The crew crossed themselves against the goatmen legends that wrapped Skagos like rotting kelp. Jaime lingered at the rail, considering the north for the first time in years. Somewhere beyond those fanged rocks, Winterfell's hearths glowed, and the Starks he had once half-scorned now stood guardians of a realm he'd upended. Ned Stark, Robb, Catelyn. He had glimpsed their fates in scraps of raven ink, each more tragic than rumor allowed. Yet here on this deck, Ned's daughter laughed with a dragon princess. Futures rewrote themselves in quiet margins. That night, the children pleaded for stories until lanterns guttered. Jaime, seated on a coil of thick cable, spun a yarn of Florian the Fool rescuing Jonquil from tyrant lords. Arya corrected him once. In the north, we tell it that Jonquil saved herself and Florian just carried water. But let the tale unfold. Rhaenys fell asleep midway, head on Arya's lap. Jaime's throat tightened at the picture. Stark and Targaryen, wolf and dragon, sister-daughters of houses torn asunder, bound by survival far from any throne. Elia gathered both children, whispered her thanks, and retreated below. Jaime lingered in the lantern's dying glow, staring at calm water. Oberyn approached, eyes glittering. You've grown fond, the prince observed. Jaime did not feign ignorance. How could I not? Fondness becomes a chain in war. Chains can anchor too, Jaime answered. Oberyn weighed that, then nodded slowly. Pray they anchor rather than drown. 3 days later, the nightingale crossed the mouth of the Trident at moonrise. Lanterns were dimmed, Quayle feared royal patrols. The coastline lay black, save for an occasional fisher torch bobbing like lonely starlight. Arya paced the deck restless. Jaime joined her near the stern. Do you know these waters? He asked. Not as roads, she replied, voice hushed. But my dreams roam the banks. The reeds, the muddy smell, feels near. Memories are sly sailors, Jaime said. Arya snorted. Memories? They're ghosts that bite if you turn your back. A gull shrieked overhead, sudden and shrill. Jaime instinctively reached for hilt. Arya too. They shared a tight smile. Two wolves disguised as lion and shadow. By dawn, fingers of fog closed around them dense as carded wool. The ship slowed to half sail. Sound carried strangely. Waves' thumping hull seemed distant. Captain Quayle's shouted orders muffled as though walls had sprouted between decks. Jaime stood with Jalabar at starboard, straining for shapes. Frost clung to beard stubble despite summer's peak. A bell told once off port. Long, low, metallic. Then silence. Another breath, and a lantern bobbed forth. Deep orange glow revealing the high beak of a war galley, black-hulled, its sails furled. Painted across the prow, a golden crown crowned with antlers. The stag of Baratheon. Quayle cursed under breath. Jaime felt blood drain from his face. Names of the seven, Jalabar muttered. How did they reach us? We've sailed too straight a course, Jaime answered. They patrol by net. Sooner or later, any bird flies into wire. He strode to the quarterdeck where Elia and Oberyn had already joined the captain. Quayle lifted her speaking trumpet. Man o' war, strike sail and identify. From the fog, a clarion voice replied. In the name of His Grace Robert Baratheon, King of the Undulls and the First Men, heave to for inspection. Surrender any contraband, fugitives, or traitors, and no harm will come to your crew. Oberyn's jaw tightened. He looked to Jaime. Your king summons you. Jaime's laugh held no humor. I no longer know my king. Elia kept her calm but white-knuckled the railing. Rhaenys, peering from behind Arya, whispered, More fireflies? No, Arya murmured back, voice like drawn steel. These ones sting. A hurried council convened near the wheel. Nightingale lacked armament beyond a pair of ballistae. The Baratheon galley, now emerging fully through mist, bristled with 10 scorpions and at least 60 marines visible along the rail. Escape by speed impossible, by stealth gone. Deception remained. Present themselves as minor merchants. Hope the search proved cursory. But golden hair and Martell features could not be hidden if soldiers boarded. Then we must not allow boarders, Oberyn stated. Where his tone earlier had been sardonic silk, now it cut like obsidian. I will go alone under flag of parley. Claim we carry spices bound for Gulltown. Perhaps coin oil's greed. Jaime shook head. They will seize you and hail it triumph. Robert despises Dornish still. Then what? Quayle demanded. We're a dove before hawk. Jaime inhaled. Let me go. Oberyn's eyes flared. Elia's breath caught. Jaime pressed on. I wear no sigil. I can claim to be a sell-sail escorting cargo. If they glimpse golden hair, they might suspect. But suspicion is uncertainty. While they question me, you steer east into the Narrows. Fog remains thick. By the time they decide my worth, wind will carry you out of range. No, Elia whispered. I won't trade one hostage for 3. You won't be trading, Jaime said gently. I give myself. Foolish, Oberyn spat. Tywin taught you sacrifice for others? I'd sooner believe dragons hatch in my beard. Dragons do hatch, Arya muttered darkly, earning a choked laugh from Rhaenys that nearly cracked tension. Jaime addressed Oberyn. My father's rage is worse if he cannot lay hands on these children. He will scour the world. But if I reappear, he may think my disappearance folly, not treason. Robert may hold me for ransom rather than hunt you blind. Or lop off your head to please his counsel, Oberyn countered. He drinks too much to bother, Jaime said, though he knew Robert's wrath could be lethal when sobered by politics. Time is all you need, reachless. From there, Mir, then maybe Braavos again. You have gold. You have allies. I will buy that time with my life if need. Elia's eyes glistened. Arya scowled, arms crossed.
Jolopor cleared throat. Fog scenes.
Choose. Rhaenys stepped forward, small hands grabbing Jaime's tunic. Don't go, she said fiercely. They'll hurt you. They hurt all good knights. He knelt. A knight's first task is keeping ladies safe. Will you let me protect you? Tears welled. She swallowed. At last she nodded, though her fingers clung. He kissed her forehead, then rose. Oberyn swore quietly in Rhoynar, but he unclasped his spear strap, slung it off, and offered the weapon to Jaime. Carry this token. A spear of the Viper is feared on any deck. I thought I was to surrender? Time, lion. Buy it how you must. Jaime accepted the weapon, testing weight. Light, balanced, lethal. He removed his cloak, draped it around Elia. Then he strode to portside where Nightingale's longboat was already swung out. Before he lowered, Elia caught his hand. If you die, she whispered. Know I remember how your eyes looked that first night in firelight, when you chose mercy over obedience. She pressed something into his palm. A tiny ring shaped like a seashell, mother of pearl. Return for this when shadows lift. He curled fingers around the ring. Words failed. He stepped into longboat, Jalabar beside him steering ropes. 2 crew rowed, silent. Fog swallowed them quick. Currents tugged gently. Behind, Nightingale's sails creaked as she angled east, slow and subtle. Ahead, the dark hull of the Baratheon galley loomed massive. A mariner on the bow hailed. A ladder rope rattled down. Jaime ascended, spear sheathed across back. Deck smells of pitch and stale beer assaulted him. Marines leveled pikes. Their sergeant, a heavy-set man with boar-tusk necklace, eyed Jaime's attire. Name and business. Ser Gawain Hill, Jaime said, summoning an alias once used sneaking from Casterly Rock. Sellsword bound for Gulltown, escorting cargo of Myrish saffron. Where's cargo manifest? Captain holds it. Fog thick. We parted to drift and reconvene at first sun. She feared reefs. Sergeant grunted. Hair like minted gold. Spear like Dornish viper. Tongue like cell sail. You stink of lies. Jaime shrugged. I stink of bilge and boredom. Chain him, another barked. Shackles snapped. Irons clasped wrists. Jaime offered no resistance. Time. Every heartbeat counted. They marched him to quarterdeck where flag of Crownstag fluttered. There stood the ship's captain, a lean knight with red nose, wine's mark, Sir Garrett Swan. He regarded Jaime through bleary eyes, then jabbed a finger at the spear. Contraband of traitor prince, Swan slurred. Who gave? A sellsail buys where coin flows, Jaime answered. Found that in lists after a gambling bout. Swan laughed. It cracked into cough. Pretty accent for sellsail. Where learned? Around? Jaime said, letting Lannister drawl slip purposely, half hinting truth. Confusion sowed doubt. Swan paced. King Robert seeks 2 things. Rebels and lion cubs. Your mane shines bright. Unmask. Knave. Remove beard. Jaime's beard was mere stubble. Still, he lifted chin. Take a razor if you wish. Swan stepped close, squinted. His eyes widened. Recognition sparked faint like dying ember. He'd seen Jaime once at court perhaps. But before he formed charge, a lookout shouted from crosstrees. Sail east. 3-masted cog making speed. Swan cursed, stumbled to rail. Fog had thinned enough to show Nightingale's silhouette goose-winged on fresh breeze. She now cut perpendicular across Baratheon prow, quarter-mile distant. Swan snapped orders. Helm hard starboard. Rowers to benches. Drums boomed. Marines scrambled. Jaime, forgotten for heartbeat, sprang. He drove elbow into the sergeant's jaw, snapped chain slack between wrist irons across guard's throat, yanked forward. The man toppled. Jaime seized drop dagger, spun, sliced shackle hinge on would rail. Sparks flew, one cuff sprung. He pivoted just as another Marine thrust pike. Jaime angled blade, swatted tip aside, kicked knee. The sailor screamed, fell. Chaos erupted. Swan gaped. Then stop him, echoed. Jaime rushed port rail, leap in mind. 20 feet of drop, cold water, but armored Marines closed behind. He whipped Oberyn's spear from back, still half-bound by remaining cuff. The Viper's weapon danced. Low thrust into thigh, high slash reversing but across temple. Marines reeled. Jaime vaulted rail. Spear still in grip, he hurled it javelin-wise into mainsail rigging where it snagged canvas, tearing a yawning gash. Wind spilled. The galley lurched. He plunged into freezing water. Salt bit wound from earlier quarrel. Chains dragged, but he kicked, broke surface. Fog swallowed him. He rolled onto back, sucked air. Oar-beat thunder faded behind as galley struggled with torn sail. Nightingale's dark hull lay distance east, but current carried him parallel. He swam sidestroke, conserving energy. Fog thickened again, a blessing. Bells clanged faintly on galley. Voices cursed. No skiffs launched. Storm canvas first. Pain throbbed shoulder. Muscles cramped. Yet strokes found rhythm. The sea seemed to guide him, curling waves just high enough to shield. At last Nightingale's stern loomed. A rope ladder trailed. He seized rung, hauled up shivering. Jalabar awaited with blade drawn. When Jaime rolled onto deck, crew erupted in cheers quickly hushed. Elia knelt, tears streaking cheeks. Rhaenys flung herself onto his damp chest. Arya grinned fierce. Captain Quayle wasted no time. They'll mend sail by first watch. We need wind. Oberyn emerged, spear miraculously back in hand. He pressed it to Jaime's palms. Lost something? His smile was half admiring, half exasperated. Borrowed. Returned. Jaime gasped through chattering teeth. Elia wrapped blanket round him, whispered, "Never leave again." He managed gnawed before exhaustion toppled him. Darkness claimed. He woke in a small cabin, bruise-dappled, wound-poulticed. Lantern glow painted gentle halos. Rhaenys dozed curled at his side. Elia sat by bunk stitching a torn sleeve. Jaime rasped, "How far?" "Cog and fog carried us," she answered softly. They turned back. The wind favored our sails alone. He exhaled relief. Elia set sewing aside, clasped his hand. "When we reach Lys, we must choose new names, new paths. But wherever we go, you are no longer shield alone. You are family." The word cut deeper than any blade. Family. An oath Tywin had forged in iron, now recast in gentler metal by fate. Jaime squeezed her hand. "Family," he echoed. Days melted to weeks. Nightingale skirted storms, dodged patrols, anchored at secret coves for water and smoked haddock. Oberyn's web of debts guided them. Smugglers who asked no question. Myrish artisans who forged seals anew. Cohoric scribes who inked blank passports. Jaime shed tea. He last shacklecuff in Lys, tossed it into Sapphire Harbor. Arya carved runes on deck rail marking each sea league. Rhaenys learned to navigate by stars. Aegon started toddling, feet splayed wide on swaying planks, giggling as Jaime feigned monstrous lion growls. Yet peace never settled entirely. Ravens flew. Whispers said Lord Tywin massed forces in the Reach, that Robert's court split over Dornish aid to Targaryen heirs, that Stannis' fleet strengthened Dragonstone. Far to the east, a rumor reached them of a beggar queen walking the red waste with newborn dragons on her shoulders. Jaime pondered prophecy and irony alike. He told Elia only that the world loved symmetry. She answered that the world loved hope. One turquoise dawn, as gulls screamed over the harbor of Old Town below Hightower's pale spire, Nightingale dropped anchor in the quiet cove of Whispering Sound. From here, cobweb channels threaded inland to Holdfast still loyal to houses Martell and Dane. Oberyn proposed they slip ashore beneath mist, then ride south through the Dornish marches disguised as spice traders until Sunspear's horizon shimmered. Captain Quayle fretted about Hightower customs but agreed to linger one moon cycle for word. The party disembarked in 2 skiffs, crates of saffron and bolts of Myrish silk for cover. Jaime carried Aegon strapped to chest. Elia wore country widow gray. Oberyn disguised with cloth over hair. Arya and Rhaenys giggled as ragamuffin apprentices. Jalabar's surviving spearmen formed escort disguised as caravan guards. They threaded tidal marshes where reeds whispered like conspirators. Dragonflies flickered sunlight. Occasionally distant bell tolls drifted from Old Town, but otherwise only frog croak and wind. They camped under willow domes, fireless, sharing cold bread dipped in honey wine. Jaime found peace in these quiet marches. though danger thickened the very stillness. On fifth night, as half-moon silvered creek ripples, Arya nudged Jaime awake. "Riders," she breathed. He listened. Faint clink of bridles, soft splash. Caravan stirred. Oberyn signaled silence, spear interchangeable any brush. Shadows materialized across water. 6 riders, lantern muffled, tabards indistinct. Jaime crouched beside Elia, whispering instructions. Rhaenys clutched his arm. Jalabar arranged spearmen behind wagon. Riders approached camp's margin. Hailed, "Peace, lost in marsh. Seek tide marker to Old Town." Their accents reachling. Oberyn stepped forward, playing merchant captain. "No markers here," he replied. "Creeks shift. Best return sunrise." The riders edged closer. Lantern light revealed sigil on leader's cloak. Golden Rose of Tyrell quartered with Lion of Lannister. Jaime's breath stalled. Tywin's reach indeed. Leader swung down, helmet visor up revealing youthful face. Freckles. "We search for caravan bearing contraband. Rumor of Martell fugitives. By order of Lord Paramount Tyrell and Lord Tywin Lannister." Oberyn's smile chilled air. Many rumors flutter these reeds. The lad's eyes narrowed at Spear.
"Odd weapon for spice trader."
Spice thieves flourish. Another rider gasped softly, whispering to Captain. He pointed at Jaime's golden hair in moonlight. "There, that one." Time froze. Jaime placed hand on dagger. Jalabar poised, but sudden arrow sang from dark, whistling like night insect. It struck Tyrell rider's shoulder. He cried, stumbled. Chaos erupted. More arrows slashed air from unseen flank. Marsh erupted with shadows. Cloaked figures in reed-woven masks sliding from water like ghosts of Nymeria's armada. Their arrows cut with surgical precision, disabling, not killing. Within heartbeats, Tyrell riders lay disarmed, wounded but living. Leader of new arrivals removed mask. A woman with copper-dark skin, eyes green as marsh moss. Oberyn exhaled relief. "Silva Santagar," he greeted softly. "Prince," she bowed. "Your sister sends regrets for delay." She swept gaze over caravan. "All is in readiness. Tide channel clear. No more pursuers." Tyrell youth groaned. Silva knelt, pressed cloth to wound. "Peace," she told him, voice gentle. "You chase ghosts. Let the living pass." She signaled. Her marsh archers melted back into reeds, guiding caravan along hidden causeway south. Jaime cast one look at vanquished riders. He pitted them, pawns like those he once commanded. Dawn revealed rolling dunes shifting to sun-baked sprawl. The smell of saline flats and blooming cactus greeted them like homecoming hymn. Rhaenys cheered. Even stoic Arya smiled. Elia wept quietly. The journey across Dornish marches became triumphal procession disguised as humble trek. At secret watchtowers, banners slid up, sun and spear at half-staff, signaling safe passage. Fishermen rowed across brackish lakes to ferry wagons while singing old Rhoynar ballads. Every child along dusty roadsides seemed to know Aegon's name already, though he toddled oblivious. Jaime realized rumor outpaced ravens. At last, Sunspear's spear-topped towers speared sky, hot wind fluttering ochre pennants. Trumpets keened from battlements as caravan crossed the Sphinx Bridge. Crowds thronged markets, hurling blossoms. Flame-red talon petals, desert lilies white as dawn. They cried Elia's name, Rhaenys's, Aegon's, and began chanting one unfamiliar until Jaime caught syllables. Lion's shield. He flushed. Word of his deed had traveled. Within water gardens' cool colonnades, Prince Doran met them in wheeled chair. Tears coursed his cheeks as he embraced Elia. Rhaenys touched Aegon's cheek. He clasped Oberyn's shoulder long. Then, surprising all, he beckoned Jaime forth and pressed a signet ring of House Martell into his palm. "Dorne remembers debts," Doran said, voice hoarse. "Henceforth you may walk these gardens not as guest nor hostage, but as sworn friend, until you choose other road." Jaime bowed, unable to speak. Celebrations bloomed across Sunspear for 9 days. feasts of pomegranate duck, dancing beneath silk lanterns, boat races along the Greenblood where Rhaenys and Arya captained rival skiffs. Jaime found himself drawn into politics enough to navigate minefields of loyalty oaths, but Dorne deftly shielded him, presenting the lion's shield as symbol of Dornish clemency. Letters of protest from King's Landing arrived. Dorne replied with courteous delays. Tywin's envoy demanded Jaime's return. Dorne countered with legalities of sanctuary. War might come, but not yet. In quiet hours, Jaime and Elia walked reflecting pools lined with alabaster. They spoke little. Words had stretched thin under burden of gratitude and grief. One night, moon sails overhead. Elia produced the seashell ring from pocket. Claim? Jaime smiled. He slid it onto finger next to Kingsguard Knight's band he still wore, though white cloak long gone. She lifted his hand, kissed both rings. Rhaenys interrupted, dragging Arya by sleeve. "We found a secret grotto," she shrieked. "There are mosaic dragons glowing." Elia laughed, chasing after. Jaime watched them dart down path, heart swelling. Arya paused, glanced back. "Are you coming?" she challenged. He followed at trot. Spring heat lingered into night, cicadas droning. Life unfurled new petals. Oberyn proposed founding a school for spear and poem alike. Arya discussed sailing north eventually to hunt truths. Rhaenys plotted taming water dragons rumored in stepstones. Aegon learned first word, roar, to everyone's delight. And Jaime, once Kingslayer, found his days filled with teaching sword forms to desert squires, playing dusk chess under orange trees, waking from nightmares less often. He knew storm clouds still towered beyond horizon. Robert's ire, Tywin's iron, Cersei's betrayal, they would come. Perhaps dragons too, real this time. Yet here stood a bastion of sunlit peace, earned not by conquest but by mercy and stubborn hope. One evening, Dorne summoned Jaime alone to High Terrace. Sea wind whipped banners. Dorne spoke of alliances, how Dornish fleets might aid Stannis against Euron, how Old Town's maesters whispered of prophecies naming prince who was promised, how balance of realm teetered. He asked Jaime, "What do you seek?" Jaime looked across water where sunset burned gold, color of Lannister but now hue of forgiveness. "I seek to stand between blade and child," he said. "Everything else is verse." Dorne nodded slow. "Then Dawn will need such shields." His chair rolled back into shade, leaving Jaime with horizon. Below, Elia guided Rhaenys along parapet on dancing lesson. Arya sparred Jalabar with wooden staffs. Oberyn tuned a pearl-inlaid lute. Jaime breathed desert night, dry, perfumed with citrus, and allowed himself, for the first time in memory, to feel whole. When moon rose high, he descended, joined them. Music, laughter, gentle lantern glow, splash of fountain. The scene etched into soul. Somewhere out there, a realm trembled. Somewhere dragons spread wings. But Sunspear burned steady like lighthouse, and within its circle the Kingslayer's heart beat not in shame or rage, but in quiet, deliberate courage. Tomorrow would write new chapters. Tonight they simply lived.